graphing calculator is absolutely 100% necessary. So please, please make sure that you have a graphing calculator. Please again also make sure that you're using your specific notebook. Okay, we'll use this on a notebook quiz. I think we just had one. So if my calculations are right, I'm doing all the videos early. So we should have just had a notebook quiz so you have familiarity with what they are. Please do not forget your notebooks. You need to be using them every day and for all the things that we're doing with these lessons. So measures of central tendency, this is our objective today. We're going to learn what these are and how to use them. So measures of central tendency you, I'm sure, have seen before, so we're going to just review them though really quick. So before we even get into what are we doing to measure central, let's talk about statistics and parameters. So a statistic is a characteristic or measure obtained by using data values from a sample. All right, so when we collect data, those are statistics. A parameter is by using by using data values from population. So if we're talking about something that exists for an entire population, it's a parameter. Very rarely when we speak of parameters, we almost always talk about statistics. It's hard to get a whole population. Okay, even in the school, when we send out surveys and things like that to parents, not every parent turns it in. So it's not the population of parents at our school, it's only a sample. So everything that we'll be doing will typically be done with samples. So getting into that, we're going to move on to measures of central tendency. This is going to be mean, median, mode, range, mid-range. These are all considered, not range itself, but mid-range. Measures of central tendency, measuring the middle. All right, so the mean is the one that you're probably the most familiar with. You add them all up, divide by how many you have, and you get an average, okay? The mean, another word for mean is average, all right? Mid-range is one that we're probably not that familiar with. It's not one that's used that often, but you take the lowest value, the highest value, you add them together, and you divide by 2. That's a mid-range. So a median is the midpoint, okay? So if we were to take all of our data, put them in order, and we would pick the very, very middle. And a mode is the one that occurs the most, all right? So those are the different numbers that we're going to be dealing with. One other thing on here you'll notice, there's this little piece of information right here. This is a modal class, something else you don't talk about very often. But we've been dealing with frequency charts and histograms and those kind of things. So if you have a frequency chart and you have grouped data, the class with the most frequency or the largest frequency is called the modal class. So it still follows the same idea of mode, it's the one with the most. So let's look at some examples. So this is our first example. Now I really want to talk about the graphing calculators. Graphing calculators are really important for this class because they take what is meaningless, very long and detailed work and make it very, very simple. So anytime I can have you use a graphing calculator, I will, so that you don't have to do all the calculations, okay? My purpose in statistics is for you to be able to analyze the data, not simply calculate it. So, so this screen right here that we're seeing, I want to just go through the graphing calculator stuff with you first. This right here is, if you were to click on your graphing calculator, the stats button. And if you were to click the stats button and hit enter, okay? You hit the stats button and you hit enter, you will end up with this screen right here. It has a bunch of lists. Now, hopefully your graphing calculator is completely reset and everything's good, and you'll have L1, L2, L3, and so forth. Every once in a while, you'll do something on your calculator and you'll delete a list. Right? There's ways to reset that. If it's not reset and yours says L2, L3, L4, or it says L1 and then L3, that's okay. We can work with that. You don't have to have, you can still do it. It's not going to hurt much, okay? So we're going to assume right now that your graphing calculators are in the right order. So in L1, when we have this, we're going to put all of the data into list 1. So to find the mean, we're going to find the mean, the median, the mode, and the mid-range. So a lot of these can be found with the graphing calculator. So there's only the mid-range we'll have to calculate, and the mode you have to find. So, but the mean is very simple. If you were to do it on your own, you would add them all up, divide by how many you have, and that would give you the mean. The graphing calculator will do it for you. You put all of your numbers into list 1. So we're going to put all of these numbers into the very first list. Now I've already calculated this, so it's going to take you a little bit longer if you're doing it with me. You can pause and do that really quick if you want to. Otherwise, you can wait till you practice problem. So I put all those numbers in there, and then I hit the stats button again. So you don't have to put enter, clear, put all the numbers in. Hit the stats button again. Now what you're going to do is you're going to look at the top of the screen, and where it says calculate, you're going to scroll over and hit enter there. And then we want number one variable stats. Now, depending on whether you have a TI-83 or a TI-84, you're going to see a couple of different screens. This is for a TI-83. A TI-84 is going to have a little bit more information there. Just hit enter all the way through for right now, okay? And it will calculate for you. This little X with a line over it is called the mean. It's also called X bar. That's a way that we use to denote the mean. So that number is the mean. So when I calculated this data here, I got a mean of 3.72. So my X bar was 3.72. Now, this doesn't show it, but if you were to scroll down, okay, go ahead and just scroll down. At one point, you're going to see something on the data that says MED. That stands for median. So my median is 3.73. Okay. Now I'm going to find my mode. There's a couple of different ways I can do this. I can go through and I can count and see which ones occur the most. I can also order my data on my graphing calculator. There's a sort button somewhere. I can't remember where it is. And we'll find it and we'll talk about it in class. I don't have a screenshot for it. So, and I think between the 83 and 84 it's different. But if you find a sort button, you can sort your list and it will sort it for you. But the mode, there are two numbers that actually occur the most in this one. So we will have two modes. And you can have more than one mode, you can have no mode. So we're going to have two modes, 3.74 and 3.7 occur the most often. Okay. And then we have the mid-range. The mid-range is not in our graphing calculators. We have to do that on our own. Okay, we add up the one that the bottom of the one that's on the very bottom of our range, the one that's on the very top. Okay, that does not mean I do 3.8 and 3.64. Okay, I need to find my smallest value and my largest value. In this case, it's 3.57 and 3.86. And I divide by 2. And that gives me 3.715. Now, you'll notice that all of these numbers are pretty close together. This is actually a really nice data set where you don't have a whole lot of variance. There's not a lot of change or difference in the data points. So they're all about the same, which means all of the measures of central tendency are going to be good. All right, so go ahead and do an example on your own. It took me a long time to explain this one because we were going through the graphing calculator stuff. So you're going to do this problem on your own. Okay. Find the mean, median, and mode. This one does not ask for the mid-range. You can find it if you'd like. All right, find the mean, median, and mode. Pause, go ahead and do the problem. Smaller data set too. And the answers, unfortunately, there we go, got cut off. So there are your answers. All right. Okay, example 2. Okay, finding means with frequency charts. Okay, this is where the graphing calculator again becomes super, super important. Okay, if you don't have a graphing calculator, this is going to take you a lot longer. If you do not have a graphing calculator and trying to do this on your own, check out the book in section 3.2 and it will explain how to do it without one. I'm not going to do it on here because my assumption is that you have the tools that you need, and that includes a graphing calculator. Now, it's a little fuzzy when this cut and pasted, so I'm going to try to get through this with you explaining the steps. It's really not hard with a graphing calculator. What we're trying to do is trying to find the mean. So we need to find the midpoints. We did this last time where we did midpoints. No, we did not. Sorry, I jumped ahead. So to find a midpoint, we did do midpoints in section 1, 2, I think, when we were doing frequency distribution. So to find the midpoint of each of these, you add up the minimums and the maximum on each class and divide by 2. So this one is 94, 103, 112, 121, and 130. Okay. So those are your midpoints, and what you're going to do in your graphing calculator is we're going to have L1 and L2. So you're going to hit that button again, that stat button, and you're going to push enter, and that's going to bring up your list. In L1, you're going to put all the midpoints. In L2, you're going to put all the frequencies. Okay. Then you're going to push the stat button again. Then you're going to go over to calc, and hit O1 for one variable stats. We're still using the same thing. This is where it becomes a little interesting. If you have a TI-83, you're going to have something that says one variable stats and you're going to have to enter in L1, comma, L2, okay? The L1 and L2, I don't have my graphing calculator right in front of me, but I believe they're on top of the ones you have to use the shift button to get there. The comma, I think, is above the 7. So please make sure you do. So what this is telling it is telling the graphing calculator, list 1 is my data points, list 2 is how often they happen. If you have a TI-84, or sometimes there's different versions of them that do this differently, you're going to have 3 lines of things. I don't remember what the first one is, but the second one says frequency. So the first one you'll put in L1, the second one you'll type in L2, and then hit enter all the way through. So it's just done a little bit differently. And then once we have that, it will actually give us our mean. What are the classes for? Oh, our mean and our modal class. So our mean here, if we calculate it, will give us this 113. Okay, and our modal class is the one that has the most data points. So our modal class here is 108 to 116. Okay, so this is a little different than the last example, but still essentially the same thing. We're finding the mean, and this one is the modal class. Here's your practice problem. Go ahead and do this one on your own. And I think this one actually gave you the practice and the solution. It just asked you to find the modal class. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But I hope that you could figure that one out on your own. So I guess you don't have a practice problem on this one. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to put the solution in that one. All right, last one. This stuff, I'm going to tell you right now, this is a hard one. And you know, there's things that everybody struggles with. I'm going to be honest with you. I taught this last year, trying to teach it again this year. This is the one concept, and there's a few of these that'll happen throughout the year that I have a hard time with. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? So this is called weighted mean, meaning that we're going to put specific weights, different weights on different numbers. And I really struggle with, as far as knowing, well, what's the weight and what's the number, okay? And there's not always a good answer. It has to do with being able to interpret the problem itself, and everybody interprets problems differently. So I've read a problem that could be interpreted both ways. I've read several problems that the weights could be either one, all right? So on a lot of these problems, if you count the weight as the other one, I'll probably still give you points for them, even though if it's not obvious which one is the weight. So in this case, we're going to use this example. So I wanted you to look at the formula first of all. The formula says that to find a weighted mean, you have to take each data point, okay, this is a data point, and multiply it by its weight. And then you're going to divide by the weights added together. So this you can't really do with a graphing calculator. I suppose there's probably ways to do it, but I don't know what they are. So we're just going to do this one by hand. So in this case, our weights are actual weights, okay, of the fish, okay? And the fat is what we're measuring. So to calculate this, we're going to go 3 times 3.33 plus 3 times 3 plus 2 times 3 plus 2.5, plus 2 times, 2.5 plus 2.5 times 4.4 plus 4 times 1.75. And we're going to divide that by all these weights added together. 3 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2.5 plus 4. And we can use a calculator, either a graphing calculator or a regular calculator, to calculate that. And that gives us 41.99 divided by 14.5, which is 2.896. Okay, that is the weighted mean. All right. Here's your practice problem. All right. Your practice problem, and just to give you a heads up on this one, your weights are the credits. Okay, your weights are the credits, so the 3 credits, the 4 credits, and so forth. All right, so use the formula that we used in the last one. Go ahead and calculate it, pause the video, do the problem, and here's your solution. All right, that is it. I will see you tomorrow, and we'll do some more problems just like this.